The library at dawn glowed faintly with pale gray light. In the corner, the mahogany desk held an open ledger of questions and answers, a lifework of trivia, facts, and the sharp mind of the woman known as the governess. Anne Hegerty sat before it, not in her quiz show costume, but quietly, in a plain sweater and jeans, her eyes reflecting something more than the clever certainty of the screen persona. She had always known how to answer the questions. What year did the moon landing occur? Which river flows through Paris? Name 5 Shakespeare tragedies. The studio lights, the buzzer, the audience's gasp, all these felt familiar and safe. But today the question was different, and no buzzer would save her. Her doctor's words had echoed still. You're pre-diabetic. Your blood sugar is elevated. We need to act now. It wasn't dramatic, no storm in the studio. It was a quiet warning, a whisper in a white-coated office. The governess had faced opponents, had stared down contestants, had quizzed and been quizzed, but this challenge felt stranger. It was internal. It was the mirror of mortality. She tapped a pen against the ledger. Facts could still be memorized, battles could be won on television, but this required surrender and reinvention. A week later, she walked out into the crisp morning air for a longer than usual stroll. The street lamps still blinked out. The sky above Gopalganj was somber gray. In her mind, she still thought of back home in Manchester, a fog and bricks, but here she was, far from that, far from the studio. She inhaled the silence. As she walked, she recalled the many times she joked about her size, had clapped back at critics. Bet I'm healthier than you, mate. But this wasn't about smugness anymore. It was about honesty. She had lost weights before, 3 stone after her stint on the Jungle Show. But this felt not just cosmetic. It was vital. She passed a small cafe, the early morning stillness broken by the hiss of a coffee machine inside. She thought, maybe I'll go in. Black coffee, straight up. But instead she kept walking. The real work, she realized, was not in grand gestures, but in tiny, consistent steps. Back in the library, she sat again. She closed her ledger and opened a blank notebook. On the top of the page, she wrote, Map of Renewal. She wasn't planning a weight loss advertisement nor a triumphant post on social media. She was mapping a new relationship with her body and health. The doctor's warning was the starting pistol of a race she didn't want to run, but would. She wrote, Move often, at least 30 men's walk daily. Stretch core strength, I have none. Diet, more vegetables, less processed. Monitor blood sugar. Mind, give myself permission to rest. She paused. She thought about the image of the governess, precise, immaculate, unflappable. But she also thought about Anne, the person, diagnosed with Asperger's at 46, having navigated life a little differently. She realized that the same traits, rigor, perseverance, self-awareness, that had helped her on the quiz show could serve her now. Days turned into weeks. She walked when she might otherwise have stayed on the sofa. She turned down some occasions of indulgence, not to punish herself, but to protect. The ledger remained open on the desk, but the notebook of renewal sat beside it, equally important. She noted subtle changes, her energy steadier, the scales inching, the mirror less critical. She encountered the inevitable, a social media troll calling her obese and a bad example. She felt the old reflex to lash back, to defend, but instead she simply typed, Thank you for your concern. I am working on things quietly. And then she closed the window. Why? Because this time it wasn't about proving anything to someone else. It was about proving kindness to herself. One evening, The lights were up in the studio for a new episode of The Chase. Anne sat in her chair, ready. The bright camera lights, the camaraderie of contestants, the tension of the buzzer, all these felt comforting. But just before filming began, she took a steadying breath. Off camera, she knew this season she was playing in two arenas. One was public, one was private. In public, she would be the formidable governess, sharp and witty. In private, she would be someone choosing health over hearthside indulgence, choosing movement over inertia, choosing kindness over self-criticism. She entered the studio. The theme music rose, the contestants settled. She gave them her icy-eyed glance. And then, when the first question came, she leaned forward and asked, "Which?" But inside her mind, something else spoke quietly. "You've answered the biggest question already. You'll keep answering it, with each step, each choice, each morning when you walk in the gray dawn." A few months later, she visited her doctor. The sugar levels were down, the blood pressure better. He smiled, not triumphantly, but with quiet approval. "Well done," he said. "You've transformed more than the numbers." Anne nodded. She looked out of the window. Her reflection in the glass didn't dominate the view anymore. She saw the world beyond. She thought of all the questions she had answered in life. Now she answered the one that mattered most. How will I live my life? She left the clinic and walked into sunlight. Back home, she opened the notebook of renewal. On the top page was a new title, Living the Answer. She closed it, went outside, and walked. In the end, the governess learned that not all battles were to be won with knowledge and sharp retorts. Some were to be won with patience and self-care. The studio lights still shone. The cameras still clicked, but off-screen, in the quiet world between dawn and breakfast, Anne Hegerty fought a different kind of quiz, one with no buzzer, no prize money, no audience. And when she looked in the mirror, she didn't only see the quiz champion. She saw a woman who had heard the warning, taken the turn, and walked into a new chapter.